All right, shalom aleichem, rabotai. Welcome to our Wednesday class on Yalkut Yosef. Michael, bruchim habayim. And we are in the topic of Hilchot Shabbat. We just started talking about tiltul or hotza'a mireshut lereshut, carrying. When we have an iruv, we don't have an issue, right? Baruch Hashem, most places have that. But if you go to a place, an island, whatever it is that does not have an iruv, then these halachot will be more relevant. So the next halacha is you are allowed to carry a clothing item on you any in a way that you're wearing, even if you're wearing 10 of them. What if I want to carry scarves for my family members that live across the town and there's no iruv? I'm allowed to wear scarves, but I'm not using 10 scarves. I'm using one. You're allowed to wear all 10 scarves if you want to carry them to the other. Whatever is derech malbush, is the way of wearing. You want to put on 3 coats on you because you want to give a coat to someone that lives across the city? No problem. As long as it's the way of wearing it, you will be allowed to. Even 2 hats. You put a hat, you put on the hat another hat, it's okay. That's the halacha, because it's the way of how you get dressed. Right? But if you're going to put something that's not derech malbush, right? Some people, I know in Italy, a lot of people used to do this where there was no iruv, and they would take a key and kind of, hang it in certain areas. If it's not the way that people dress, it's going to be a problem. It has to be derech malbush. So unless it's a common thing that the belt has, a key on it over there, and a lot of people dress like that, it's not so simple to allow that. But the idea that he brings down is whatever is the way of wearing, you could wear on yourself, even if you are wearing a few items like this. Next topic, very interesting and relevant to soldiers in Eretz Yisrael. So weapons in the army. You have a Shabbat shift, happened to me too. What do? Are you allowed to carry your weapon? So definitely once you are in a wartime, or if you are in an area where you have to defend, you're gating and say a neighborhood that is potentially dangerous, of course you can have your weapon on you. The question is, what about your tefillin? Let's say I'm sleeping in a tent and we're moving from one place to the other, and now it's Shabbat. I'm carrying my weapon because I'm allowed to, because it's self-defense. But what about my tefillin? The tefillin, we know tefillin is muktzeh. It's a mitzvah that you're not supposed to do on Shabbat, so it's muktzeh. So what can I do? Is it okay to carry the tefillin, or is it not? So we have to know that there is an opinion that tefillin is not muktzeh, and you could even use them on Shabbat. This is not halacha lemaaseh, but this is an opinion that is brought down in halacha. So if it's not the halacha, what do we care? The answer is that when you have opinions, even though they're not halacha, but you may be able to add that opinion to another opinion that may not also be halacha, but when you have 2 opinions that go in a certain direction, you use it. It's called a safek sfekah. Maybe it's like this, maybe it's like this. Okay, 2 maybes, we could use them, even though halacha is not like that. So we'll explain. This tefillin, we hold that it's muktzeh. However, there is an opinion that holds that it's not muktzeh. Right? So that's opinion number 1. So maybe tefillin is not even muktzeh, so I can carry it. Or maybe there's an opinion that once you are allowed to carry muktzeh, which is the gun, then you are allowed to add as many muktzehs as you want, because you're just adding to an existing problem, but the problem is already there, so no problem. Now, halacha, we didn't say halacha is like that. Halacha is not like that. Once you're carrying 1 muktzeh, we tell you carry more. No, but there is an opinion like that. So says the Yalkut Yosef, rely on those 2 opinions. Rely on opinion number 1, that maybe halacha is like the opinion that tefillin is not muktzeh. And even if it is muktzeh, rely on the opinion that you're allowed to add a muktzeh on top of an existing muktzeh that you're already carrying. Halacha lemaaseh, especially since it's also a mitzvah, he says, then definitely do not leave your tefillin somewhere and say, no, sorry, it's muktzeh, carry those. Okay. All right, next topic that the Yalkut Yosef. By the way, now that he's dealing with Hilchot Shabbat, a lot of the halachot are not going to be one topic and going very, very deep into it. He's going to throw cases at us. Some of them have similarities, but they're cases that are very relevant for everyday lifestyle to someone that wants to keep Shabbat properly. And a lot of these things, people that have been keeping Torah mitzvot for years, soon we'll see examples, they do these things without noticing, and they think it's okay because we don't know. I didn't know either. A lot of people don't know. So, Baruch Hashem, that's what we're doing here today. So, what happens if a clothing item fell into the water? Someone threw the shirt into a pool or something like that, into a puddle, all right? Would I be allowed to lift that clothing item out of that pool or out of that puddle? So halacha is you cannot. Why? Because there's a decree, Shema yavo lischot. Maybe if you lift it out of the water, you're going to come. It's a natural thing. Once you pick up something wet, you squeeze it. So they said since squeezing is forbidden, we're putting a decree. We're not even allowing you to touch it. Shema yischat. Maybe you will come to squeeze, right? However, he says, if you do it two people together, it is allowed. This is a big topic in Shabbat, where shnaim she'asawu it's called. If two people do the item that is problematic together, it reduces the severity of the prohibition of the sin, because in our case over here, meaning they say that if let's say you have to pass through a eye of an elevator that's going to see you on Shabbat, so better you do it with two people. Shnaim she'asawu. Over here, though, the reason why two people is good is also because once you're with someone else, you're going to remind each other, hey, we're not allowed to squeeze this. If someone comes to squeeze, whoa, Shabbat, you're two, you're already in a safer zone. So if that case happens and you have to remove the shirt, let's say, from the pool, find another person and say, let's lift it together. That would be the proper way to do it. However, if this is an item that the weight of it is to be carried wet, for example, the mop that you clean the floor, the sponge, what do you call it? That mop that is filled with all the, always you clean with it, then the, right, the towel, what is it? A sponge, we call it in Hebrew. You know what I'm talking about? That you clean the floor with. The way of that thing is to always be wet and dirty, which means that when I see it wet, it's not a natural thing for me to come and squeeze it. I'm used to it being dirty. So I'm not going to be bothered and I'm not going to come to squeeze it. So if that is wet on the floor because, let's say, someone threw it on a puddle and they wanted to dry the puddle, that I will be allowed to lift. Maybe I'll come to squeeze. No, we're not worried you're going to come to squeeze that. That thing is always dirty. Your shirt that fell in the water, you're not used to seeing your shirt in the water. You care for it. But this item you don't care for, then that one you will be allowed to pick up. Similar case, what happens if I'm walking to the Knesset and my shirt or my jacket got soaked? Now I want to dry it. So what do I do? Would it be okay to dry that shirt? And if so, how? So definitely we are not allowed to hang it on a string. Back in the day, I don't know how many people still do that today, but they would hang the clothing on strings to dry it. Why? Marit ayin doesn't look good. If you hang it on a string, people are going to think, this guy washed his clothes on Shabbat, now he's hanging it, everybody sees it in your backyard. So Simon is going to say, no, I'm not doing it in my backyard. I have a laundry room in my house. I hang it in the laundry room. No problem, right? What are we going to say? Sorry, Simon, still no good. Why? Because what is the rule? Marit ayin gam bechadrei chadarim. Even if it's a closed area, no one's going to see you. You see yourself, that's already a problem. You cannot do something that appears to be wrong. When you're hanging a wet item, it appears that you washed clothing on Shabbat, and that's why it would be forbidden. However, you can take off the wet shirt or the wet jacket and put it on a chair in the living room. But it's also hanging to dry. Yeah, but it's a normal thing. No one thinks that if they see a chair with a shirt on it, someone washed clothing right now. There's no marit ayin over there, and that would be allowed, right? You understand the distinction? He says, but if you're going to take 4 chairs, listen, we heard that the chair is allowed. So you take 4 chairs and now you spread your wet jacket on 4 chairs, you put in an angle that it gets good sun. It's chairs. It's not a string. No. The idea is that it doesn't appear like you are drying something. When you put it on a chair, it doesn't appear. If you're going to put it that way, that would be a problem. Okay. So the next halakha that he brings is the marit ayin. The marit ayin, that whatever doesn't look good. Marit ayin, you cannot hang even in a private area something that is wet. Mishum marit ayin. Don't think marit ayin is just for the public. It's also when you are alone. Next topic, kibus, laundry on Shabbat. Everybody knows you're not allowed to clean clothing on Shabbat. But I've seen this on a person that is shomer Torah, mitzvot, for his whole life, but a stain of wine hit his shirt on Shabbat. I've seen a few people do this. And it's a natural reaction. They take a little seltzer or whatever it is, and they tap it against the stain because it's just a natural reaction. But that's the issue of kibus, mechabes on Shabbat. It's laundry. You are definitely not allowed to do that, even if it's just one dot. And it's not an issue from Chachamim. It's an issue Torah. It's considered laundry from Torah, and it would be forbidden. And you're also not allowed to try to scrub it off or to put the baby powder to try to, suck out to the stain as well. All those are elements of cleaning, our laundry on Shabbat, and that would be forbidden. Back in the day when they would do laundry, an important part of the laundry is once it's out, they would also fold it. But the folding had a very specific way to be folded. And therefore, some say that folding certain items today on Shabbat would be forbidden. One of the examples is a talit that we take off. Some say if you're going to fold a talit, don't fold it on the existing folds. Not just because you are preparing it for Motzei Shabbat, because you're not going to use it after Shacharit again on Shabbat. You're preparing it. No, it's not considered prepared. The main issue is that maybe while you're folding it, you're taking part of the action of when we did the laundry and we used to fold it exactly on the lines. So some are strict not to fold on the lines. However, he says there is what to rely on if you want to fold it even on the lines, because today, listen, when you fold a talit on the line, not on the line, once it's on you, does someone look at it and say, this guy, he didn't fold on the lines, it doesn't look so good? Once the talit is on, all the lines are gone, you don't see anything. So it's not such a strong thing like it used to be, the folding. And therefore, there is an opinion that you could also fold it on the lines and that won't be a problem. Another thing, I'm learning on Shabbat and I read something beautiful and I say, wow, I have to write this down. Motzei Shabbat, I want to take out my stuff, write this down. So what do? I make a little fold like that. All right. I made a siman and I leave it. Now Motzei Shabbat, I come, I scroll through all the papers. Everywhere I see a siman, I take out my pen and I write. Is that allowed or not? What do you think? And if so, what would be the problem? I see Michael go like this.
I don't think you're allowed to do any activity, any work that is for the weekday, that you kind of bring it into Shabbat, even if you don't do the action itself. If you prepare or mentally or physically or something that you talk about or you do something that is not for Shabbat, it's for during the week that you're not allowed to do, you should not bring it into Shabbat.
Very good. So Michael is basically saying what is called preparation, hachana. Asur le'achin mishabbat lechol. I'm not allowed to do stuff on Shabbat that are needed for a secular day. And since I cannot write on Shabbat, this is going to be used on Yom Chol, so I cannot prepare. However, and this is where it gets interesting, is that preparation has to be something that is mamash, where you could tell someone did something to prepare. But Rav Ovadia Yosef holds that by folding a paper, where he even says you could take your nail and punch it into the area in the book that makes a little mark like that. He says because these are not real preparations. If I would be preparing a meal on Shabbat for Motzei Shabbat, let's say I take sandwiches and all this I'm making for Motzei Shabbat, you really made an action, you prepared it, okay? But folding a piece of paper or marking with your nail, he says, it's not considered a real preparation. So, however, you are right, Michael. Preparation from Shabbat Lechol is allowed, but this, especially when it's Divrei Torah, I'm sure Rabbi Ovadia was only talking about Divrei Torah because some rabbis hold that it's not so simple to learn secular things. We have an opinion by the Rashba, Shlomo ben Aderet, that holds that you can even learn, secular things like math or science or whatever on Shabbat. But now we're just talking about the preparation, so there is no preparation in folding a paper. What about organizing my bed on Shabbat? I wake up in the morning. I want to set the bed. It's not nice. The room looks messy. So I lift a blanket. I put it on the corners and I go down. Can I do that? Or did I prepare for Motzei Shabbat? It appears to be an action of preparation. So how much of preparing is there? So that's already a little bit more of preparation. It's nikar. You can tell. Everybody looks and sees, wow, this was prepared. So the distinction is there a chance you're still going to use the bed on Shabbat? If there's a chance you're still going to use the bed on Shabbat, then you can prepare it. You're preparing it for yourself for later. But if you know you're not going to use it definitely until Motzei Shabbat, don't fix the bed unless it bothers you. Every time you pass by, ugh, what a balagan. People walking by the room, they see it. You're embarrassed. You're uncomfortable. Similar halacha we have with dishes. Some ladies, it doesn't bother them that the sink is full of dishes on Shabbat. A lady like that is not allowed to wash dishes after the Shabbat meal for Motzei Shabbat. What are you washing? Motzei Shabbat, you need the dishes. Like Michael said, it's preparation. Why are you preparing for Motzei Shabbat? Don't wash the dishes. But I have a wife at home that when she sees dishes in the sink, she cannot relax. She cannot enjoy Shabbat. She doesn't eat well. So halacha understands that. Some women are like that. And in that case, she will be allowed. Not because she's preparing and we allow her to prepare, because we want her to have shalva, nachat on Shabbat. and that gives her the peace, then she will be allowed to wash. Says the Yalkut Yosef, same thing with organizing the bed. If you're the type of person that it bothers you, you look at it, you can't relax, okay, Shabbat is there to give you pleasure, and if this takes away from your tzal, it gives you tzal and oneg, and you're not just doing it to save time for Motzei Shabbat. That's not your purpose. The purpose is because it bothers you right now, then you would be
So
allowed.
Ziv, that works also for like folding or preparing. Let's say you have a flight on Sunday and you're lachat, you have to prepare the stuff. Can you prepare on Shabbat, the luggage and
Oh,
stuff?
very, very, very nice distinction, but the answer would be no. The lachatz, when you're stressed from something, it's not tzar. You're stressed because you need to prepare because you have a flight. You need to prepare. This needs to be done. But the bed, it's not. I'm not stressed because this needs to be done on Motzei Shabbat. I'm worried I won't have time. I'm bothered right now. Even if I didn't have the flight, right now I'm uncomfortable. It's not that I'm worried what will happen later. Right now I'm uncomfortable. With preparing for a flight on Motzei Shabbat, you're worried what's going to be on Motzei Shabbat. But right now, it's not something that is
Like
bothering your.
my wife, for example, on Shabbat, she needs to like fold stuff and rest stuff. She can't see the balagan and stuff.
That's a different case. So if the room is messed up, that would be the same idea. The room is messed up, and she's not doing it to save time for Motzei Shabbat. That's not her purpose. Her purpose is because it takes away from the pleasure of Shabbat. When the room is messed up,
So
when
she's
there,
allowed. Okay.
she's allowed. When there are toys all over the floor, the shoes are scattered all over the place. Wait until Motzei Shabbat, fix it.
But what Hashem, she's allowed because
Yeah. No, if
I don't
it
say a
bothers
word
her.
to her. So
If it's not if the purpose is not to save time for Motzei Shabbat, she would be allowed. And also for Shlom Bayit, also we are very lenient with a lot of things. Uh, okay, now what happens? This is the case that the Yalkut Yosef brings. When someone, let's say, was doing a paint job in the street, you passed by, and now the paint, the teeth, it fell on your jackets. It bothers you if it's going to dry into my jacket. It's a story. Sipur. Can I clean that off on Shabbat? So he says, what you can do, obviously, I can't come from on top and scrape it off. Now, let's just point something out. If I'm gonna go like that, I'm gonna be tuchen, I'm gonna be blending. That's okay, he says. That's not a problem because it was already once blended. So once something was blended and now it hardens, there's no tchina achar tchina. There's no blending after something got blended. Someone, I don't know, let's say took a tomato, shredded it, and then he somehow put it back together. I would be theoretically, I would be allowed to shred it again. Once it was shredded, even if you put it back together, it's considered en tchina achar tchina. So we don't have a problem with turning the paint into crumbs. But our problem is the laundry. We're not allowed to clean on Shabbat. So there is a way to do something. He says, what can you do? You can't come from on top of the jacket, but you could come from underneath, and whatever you could do from here like that, that he allows you to do. So put it from the other side, but not from the side that actually got dirty. What about shoes that got dirty? You walked into mud, you stepped on something that doesn't smell so good. Can I clean my shoes? So he says shoes you are allowed to actually rub them against the step or against the wall to remove the things that bother you on the shoe. מותר לשפשפו במדרגות ובקיר, he says. You can rub it off, right? By the way, if shoes are made out of leather, there's even a leniency to put it underwater and to wash it off because you're not really doing laundry to the shoes. Once it doesn't penetrate, it's just on the surface on top, then you could put the water, right? But you can't obviously take your hand and start scrubbing it off. That's already an action that shows like you're doing cleaning, but just putting your foot under the water, if it's leather shoes that don't absorb, it's not a fabric that you're cleaning it from the inside, it's just on top, then that would be allowed. So this brings us to a very important topic of Hilchot Shabbat, the topic of laundry. What makes it called laundry? Do I have to scrub? Do I have to put soap? Or is it just that you dip an item into water, it's already considered laundry? That's the halacha. Shriyato zeu kibuso. The fact that you take a dirty item and you put it into water, doesn't matter you scrub, doesn't matter how long you left it in there. You dipped it in water once, it's considered laundry. Shriyato zeu kibuso. Right? However, if it's a clean clothing item, right, then if it touches water, that's not a problem, but he says a little bit. Why a little bit? Because if you put a lot, we just learned that when clothing item gets very wet, people have a tendency to squeeze it. So we're scared about that. But if for some reason a clean clothing item, you're getting it a little bit wet, you're playing in an area that there's water, that's not the end of the world, he says, but better to try to not get your clothing wet generally on Shabbat as much as you can. All right. Another topic is called makeh bepatish. And this is very, very wide, but in a nutshell, makeh bepatish means the last hit of the artsman with his hammer to create the vessel. Right? For example, I have a belt. Okay? So the belt cannot be used until I put the buckle on. Once you put the buckle on, now the belt is ready to be used. Okay? So if I'm buying a brand new belt that has never been used, and I put the buckle on Shabbat for the first time, I made the belt worthy of being worn on Shabbat. That's called makeh bepatish. That's a su. If it's a belt that you already used and the buckle fell off, you're allowed to put the buckle back on, assuming it's not, there's no stitching. It's just like a piece that you take on and off. Why? Because you already fixed it. The makeh bepatish is only when you fix something for the first time. You made it actually available for use for the first time. Another thing is, we'll talk about this hopefully later, Bezat Hashem, not today, but putting in a new shoe, new strings to tie your laces, new laces, right? If it's an old shoe, that's not a problem. But if it's a new shoe that didn't have laces and now you put in the laces and the only way to wear the shoe is with the laces, then you made the shoe available to be worn on Shabbat, and that would be makeh bepatish.
Can you tie the shoe on Shabbat?
Shoelaces?
The shoelaces, yeah.
Yes, of course, assuming that the knot that you were making is not a knot that you intend that will last forever, right? Usually we make one knot and then we make a bow. That's made to be open. So even though you're not allowed to make knots on Shabbat, one day, B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll get into the topic of tying knots, but let's explain generally, when is it forbidden from the Torah and when is it forbidden from Chachamim? In order for it to be forbidden from the Torah, it has to be a knot that is a kesher shel oman, an artistic knot, like the sapanim, those that tie the boats. It's not a regular knot like we make. It's a special knot. That's considered an artistic knot. That is forbidden. If you make a knot like that to last for a long time, that would be forbidden from the Torah. But if it's a knot that is not meant to last for a long time, or if it's a knot that is not artistic, it would only be forbidden from Chachamim. When is it allowed? When the knot is not artistic and it's not meant to last for a long time. So when I tie my shoelaces, I mean to open it, let's say Shabbat, or whenever I take off my shoe. It's not there forever, right? That already is okay because the knot is a simple knot. I didn't make an artistic knot over here, okay? The two examples that they bring for artistic knots are for the boats and for camels. I guess when they tie a camel, there's also a special knot that is made. Those are the examples that Chachamim bring, but I'm sure you could think of many more that know how to make special knots. If it's not a special knot, you're allowed to make it as long as it's not meant to last forever. Okay. So,
Steve,
yeah.
question about fixing. So what about like the string on the back of a suit? Let's assume you're not cutting it and you can just pull it out. Is that completing the suit?
So what are you're talking about the stitch with the label? What are you talking about?
No, on the back, sometimes like like there's a slit or two slits in the back of your suit jacket.
Oh,
and
and
sew it
cutting it, opening it so that the slit, the flap can go like move.
I'm saying without cutting it, let's say you can just pull it out. Is that completing the suit?
Good question. Good question.
And I guess the real question I'm asking is, since it's a destructive act, would that downgrade it to a lesser form and maybe be allowed?
I mean, we're not worried about tearing something, right? If you're tearing something and you're ruining it, that's not our concern. Our concern is you're being mitaken the jacket.
Right.
If you're making it,
Right.
now you can wear it. It seems like you can wear the jacket even with those. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like with the shoelaces, he points out that if you're not able to wear them without the laces. So if you are able to wear it, it's already worthy of wearing. A belt without a buckle, you can't wear. When you put it for the first time, you fixed it. So the question is a jacket that still has those stitchings considered fixed? I don't know the answer, but it seems like yeah. I mean, I could wear that jacket right now.
Well, the same way like a building, until the last nail goes in. If you one nail without it, obviously the building's fine. but it's like one more thing until it's done. So same thing with a suit, like it's meant to be taken off. Like you're not supposed to be walking around with it.
I hear what you're saying, but the halachot are different. There's makebe patish, and there's just fixing and it's two different things. Makebe patish is not fixing something; it's making it, it's giving it its last finish. So even though you could say that the building was worthy before, but this is what made it complete. The shoes were not complete without the laces. I don't think that the jacket is not complete without opening that. A lot of people walk around with that closed. But let's look into that. Let's ask that. It's an interesting question. I know that, for example, if you left the dry cleaner thing on it or whatever, you're allowed to remove that on Shabbat. We're not concerned from the tearing. It's mikalkel. You're ruining it. You don't really have a problem with that. And it's for Shabbat, that would be okay. But opening the flap is an interesting topic. All right, I wrote that down. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll try to give an answer next time. B'ezrat Hashem. All right. Was there another question or? B'ezrat Hashem. Okay. So that was makebe patish. Now, what is the example that the Yalkut Yosef brings to makebe patish, to doing an action that completes something? He says, when I have a talit, I'm wearing my talit on Shabbat, and the strings, sometimes they start spinning one. I'm not talking about knots, tightening knots. We already learned you're not allowed to tighten a knot of a talit. Of course, we're talking about the strings just, zigzagging one into the other. Not, just the zigzag of the thing. So he says, if it's an old talit, I would be allowed to open up those strings because there's no knot over there. I'm just, playing with the strings. But if it's a brand new talit, he says, that you're wearing for the first time, it's very common that exists in new talitot. And by opening up those strings now, you are fixing it for the first time. You are making it, the item that is, and therefore he says it's makebe patish. So you stand the distinction. If it's already worn and now it happened, no problem, open it up. But for the first time, it's considered you completed it. You made the action that now, okay, now I want to wear the talit. So that's the makebe patish, and that would be forbidden. Animal. Can I ride or climb on an animal on Shabbat? And what would be the reason if no? I'll tell you, the answer is no. The answer is no. First of all, animals are muktzeh. I don't know if you guys knew that. Animals are muktzeh on Shabbat. The only time you're allowed to touch an animal on Shabbat is if the animal is going to be sad if you don't. We have mercy on the animal. Right? We don't want it to cry and bark and be all upset. To relax it, you're allowed to pet it because of tzar ba'alei chaim. But without that, it's considered muktzeh. Muktzeh means you cannot move it, right? Now, why can't I climb on an animal on Shabbat? Let's say it's an elephant, okay? I'm not going to move it. You're allowed to touch muktzeh. You're just not allowed to move it. If a truck is parked somewhere, I'm allowed to lean on it on Shabbat. I'm not allowed to move the car because it's muktzeh, but I can touch it. So theoretically, if I could sit on an animal on Shabbat, would that be allowed? The answer is no. Why? Because we have a fear that once you're sitting on the horse, maybe you'll pull off a branch to come whip the horse so he starts driving. I guess it was a very natural thing to do back then. And because of that, they put a decree that you shouldn't ride the animal on Shabbat.
So you're allowed to pet an animal?
So by petting 99% of animals, you're moving the animal. And therefore you cannot pet. An animal is muktzeh. Unless it's an animal that is tzar ba'alei chaim. It's your dog, it's your parrot that sees you and it's screaming, and if you're not going to touch it, it's not going to relax. Mishum tzar ba'alei chaim, we don't sadden the animal. We have mercy on it, we allow. But generally, the animal is considered a muktzeh, and we shouldn't touch it or pet it. All right, Rabotai. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue from here next time. Skula mitzvot, Hazak u'baruch. Thank you for your flexibility today. We'll see you next week, B'ezrat Hashem.
Hazak baruch.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.